Hello and welcome to session 8. And for those of you who might have tuned in to session 7, you realize there was no audio, so I'm going to go back over a couple of points that I covered yesterday. And one of them is the size of the brushes that I use for grass, and in this case tall seagrass. And I like to use the 0 and the 1. Now these are Robert Simmons brushes. They're the ones I prefer, but I'm not sure where I can buy them any longer in town. So there are others, of course. And for the small grass, I use the tiny brush, which is the 0. And for these longer grasses, the actual sea oats, I have to use a little larger brush because I need for the paint to carry all the way to the end. And sometimes if it doesn't, I have to go back and add a little bit more. So it's important to have a script or a liner brush for this. Anything else is just not going to give you the proper width or thinness of the sea oats. Now I've put in several in yesterday's session, and I started putting in a few of the sea oats just to give you an idea in case I get to that point today. Now I'm going to be doing a few more grasses, and maybe later I will even add more of the tall grasses. But I wanted to show you what I recommend. This is a mixture of Payne's Gray and cadmium yellow light and a tad of white. But I've also put a little bit of red in here to gray it down somewhat so that it's almost an olive green. But you have to use a lot of turpentine for this. And I would suggest that you use your palette, especially while it's still somewhat clean, to practice your strokes. Because once you put them on there, of course, you would have to remove them, and that's always not the best case scenario. So try to practice somewhat. You see I'm running out of paint, so you can usually get several strokes. And of course when you start doing grasses, you do shorter little strokes. But the main idea here is to use the correct brush and also get plenty of turpentine in your paint so it will go further. Okay, so I'm going to add more of these longer grasses because these are going to be my sea oats. Now, the color of sea oats actually changes very much like leaves change in the fall. And so when they're new, they're significantly brighter. And then as the season goes on, they get more and more, well, dried out, to be honest. And you can tell by my strokes here that I needed to add more to my mixture, to add more turpentine, and also to make sure my brush is full of paint. Now I have a tendency, as I imagine most right-handed people do, to swing this way. And one suggestion, if you're having difficulty, especially if you're having difficulty getting some straight ones, which you do need because the wind is going to be going in several directions, mildly speaking. So we want some straight up and some slanted a little bit the other way because we want the sea oats to be just lightly dancing on the canvas. And we want to keep making some of these grass strokes because it takes a lot of them before it's over to get the look that we want. Okay, now I'm going to put some tops just to give you some idea. And I'm using a light color by adding some yellow to the mixture I was using for the stalks. I guess you call them stalks, whatever they are. To sort of gray them down. And as I always suggest, the more you go to the beach and pay attention to these things, the more accurate you can be. Now, in the case of this stalk right here, it really didn't go up as high as I wanted it to. So in that case, I can really begin my sea oat on up here and compensate. Now the sea oats begin with little short strokes and then you slowly widen them. And this one's fairly long, so I can begin at the top. And you just do these little C curves and make them wider. And I had already added some shadow colors over here, so I'm going to diminish those a little bit. Sea oats are not difficult because you can do a lot of little touching to them with different colors, and we're going to highlight them a little bit. So we have shadows and highlights that we can deal with to make them a little bit more real. And I'm going to have some of them standing straight up. And in that case, they kind of fall to the side so that you can see them on both sides. And some of them may just look a little bit like a stalk if they're standing just right. But these are things that we continue to add to. I can't see at this point whether my hair is getting in this video or not. I hope not. I've been scraping paint on my front door, so my hair is a frightful mess. But I hope you'll understand. Okay, now everywhere you've pulled up a little stalk, you can actually add the oats to it. And that adds interest. And then at some point when you come back and look and you think you want more, then you may do that as well. Over here, this has already begun to dry, and almost disappear. That's one of the pitfalls of using a lot of turpentine. But because this is oil, there are a lot of things you can do. Now when I add my little seeds, which each of these little things, which we might call leaves, I don't know. I can come back and add some. Notice my brush is splitting in two, which is kind of nice because it gives me twice the dotting power, if you will. I have a photograph here, and I'm not quite sure how well you can see this in the video, but it just indicates the many different shadows and highlights that you get with these sea oats. But this is our painting, and we can let it look like it wants to look. Now I'm gonna let those dry and come back to them at some point and add some more details to them. I'm going to show you a little bit about how we fill this in. I'm going back to a darker green mixture, which is Payne's Gray, and some yellow, which is Cadmium Yellow Medium. Excuse me, it's not the medium, it's the light. Payne's Gray is wonderful for making green or brown. So if you don't have a tube of that, it might be a good idea to invest. And it's also a good color for areas where you might want black. But even then, I would suggest that you add some of the other dark colors like Prussian blue or alizarin crimson. Okay, and again, you need plenty of turpentine. Now, I'm going to switch to my smaller script brush for these smaller areas. Okay. You just go in and just add more grass. You don't have to come up as high with that grass as with the other. But keep in mind that you should go in different directions. This is going to help us with the illusion that this is a patch of sea oats. I'll have this color in my brush. And I don't have much paint in that brush. I actually think I'm going to put some sea oats on the base, the end of that. Okay, this part takes a lot of patience because you've got to do a lot of strokes with that script brush. So I'm going to call this a day, and I see that the sun is getting down low and it's going to be interfering with my video anyway. So I hope this helps, and thank you for watching, and I'll be back.